So with that, we're going to bring up our first panel, which is one of the first R's of the zero waste hierarchy, is to redesign. So I think we're going to be bringing up that presentation, and I'm so excited about this panel because these are really leaders and recreating our economy and how we think. So our panel, like I said, is designing for zero waste, and we have some great speakers next. So this is myself, I'll be moderating, and then we have Martis Bagley, who has an amazing firm, and I want to go see his redesign showcase so you can go look at all these different materials and touch and feel and really understand, and you'll hear from him how innovative it's been. And I'm just so excited that our worlds came together, Martis, and that we can really reshape what we're doing. And then next up, we have Rachel Gear. Rachel, next. Let's see, we're having a little problems with our slides moving forward. So Rachel is one of our young, exciting people in this world. So she's going to present on her work on creating a circular decision tree for all of us. And I just think it's so exciting that our young people are so much farther ahead in their learning, in their understanding, and this is what will propel us forward. So we're really excited to admit Rachel and have her part. And then last up as our speaker is my dear friend Ryan McMullen. He used to be with Toyota, and he helped create our True Zero Waste program. And so he now works with the Mattress Council, and of course has taken all of his amazing knowledge and really helped rethink and reshape how we're looking at a simple item like mattresses, but that has a huge environmental impact. So I hope you can take what Ryan is presenting and apply it to anything that we're making and using. So with that, we're going to kick it off, and Martis is going to lead with his redesign. Thank you, Martis.
Thank you, Stephanie. What a wonderful intro. I love the reminder that there is no waste. So we need to quit creating waste. And that's what we try to do at my firm, Nonfiction Design. Next slide, please. So I'm an industrial designer. I create tons of products all over the world. And many years ago, stepped back and said, what's the impact of this on the world? And started to change how we create products and what we want to do, what we want our negative impact to become a positive impact. So we at Nonfiction like to say, we turn science fiction into reality for a better future. And what that really means is we work with scientists, innovators all over the world in small companies and large to bring these crazy ideas that are world changing to reality. Next slide. And how we do this is we leverage materials among many other different things. And you might see right behind me is our material library. This is the first floor of our design studio. And we partnered with a company called Material Connection so we could bring materials into our space, so we can have honest conversations with all of our clients about how can we change the world? How can we design for something different and eliminate waste? You know, when companies are looking at investing millions upon millions of dollars into a product, you know, it's hard to change from their go-to market, their comfort zone, their 5 to 10 materials that they use over and over again. So putting it into their hands opens their mind, opens their idea, that allows them to dream about a new world with new materials. Next slide. So today, I'm going to share with you 3 products that we've created over the years. And the first one is by the House of Marley. This was done long before we started our own studio, my partner and I, in fact, about 14 years ago. And if you don't recognize this guy, this is in fact Bob Marley, famous reggae icon, music icon, world famous. And the sons and daughters of Bob Marley came to us and said, we want to design an audio brand that really highlights the legacy of Bob Marley. Next slide. And so we said, well, how do we really do this? How do we highlight his legacy in an honest and genuine way? We could go out and just make a bunch of headphones and audio products, but we said, let's dive in a little bit deeper. We did a deep strategy to understand who Bob Marley was. And he's a loving person. He's a giving person. He gave through his music, he gave through life, and he always tried to raise everyone up. In fact, his album's called One Love, and that's what he was all about. And we said, well, maybe One Love isn't just about loving individual, but it's also about loving the planet as well. Next slide. So we designed a program where we built products around FSC certified woods from sustainably grown forests. We used bamboos, we used aluminums, which are the most recyclable metal on the planet. We used reground silicone, recycled paper, and things like that to create a story of products, next slide, that actually captures the essence of what Bob Marley was about. On top of this, we designed them for disassembly. And this is hugely important to the eliminating waste conversation. If we can design things that can easily be pulled apart, put in the respective recycling bins or even upcycling bins, then they can be used again and again or broken down naturally into the environment to become food for planet Earth, like we often see in compost. So this is what we did. And after 14 years of this brand being out there, from a small startup to where they're at now, selling products in most every big box retailer around, we count that as a win. And it wouldn't be as possible without the story of sustainability, without the story of what we now call circularity, and even talk about having zero waste. Because once you design a brand with such a strong strategy and brand identity, the consumers buy into it, the investors buy into it, and in a funny way, the brand can never change, and we're very thankful for that, and we know the planet is as well. Next slide. The next product I'd like to talk about is the Kala Trio. Now, Kala Health designed a technology that helps people with essential tremors. And if you don't know what essential tremors are, they're when the hands and other parts of the body tend to shake, similar to Parkinson's disease. Well, typically this is, the therapy is applied by a very deeply invasive surgery done onto the brain to add a stimulator to the nerves to then calm down the hands. Well, the problem is nobody wants a deep surgery. The other option is a lot of drugs. So they designed a concept where it actually applies electricity as a medicine to the point of the problem right on the wrist. So suddenly people can go from writing, not being able to write a letter to their grandkids to writing a letter. They can now type on computers. They can drink a cup of coffee. Things that we all take for granted. Next slide, please. In doing this, the FDA gets involved, and rightfully so. We want to create good, safe products for people, but oftentimes we cannot do the things we would love to do in designing, for zero waste or circularity or even recycling. Next slide, please. But what we can do is pick the low-hanging fruit, and that is packaging. And this is not to be overlooked, because when we look at packaging, it's such an easy win. For instance, we said, let's not put a glossy packaging with a laminate, a bunch of caustic chemicals printed onto it into the market or even into the office of a clinician. Let's ship the product directly to the consumer. Let's print low VOC, low chemical, soy-based inks onto the packaging. Let's remove some of the quick start guide by actually printing the instructions directly onto the packaging. And then finally, one of the big wins was we removed plastic altogether from the packaging by getting rid of the clamshell and those twist ties that hold your product down. We did this by sort of a compression of the packaging using the travel satchel and the instruction guide to actually hold everything in place so it doesn't bounce around and get damaged during shipping. And this really lowered the carbon footprint of the entire program for them. Next slide, please. And if you don't believe me that removing plastics from packaging is a big deal, look at this slide from Material Connection. 53% of plastics go into packaging. 53% of all the products we make, the plastic goes into packaging. That's the clamshell, that's the twist ties, that's all these different devices we do to create safe packaging, to create beautiful packaging. And I think we can get around that. So change your packaging and make it better for the environment. And it's an easy win for all of us. Next slide. And then finally, the last project we worked on is a project for the country of Singapore, supported by investors and the government of Singapore, to redesign education. And this is all about believing in adaptability for future generations. We know the world is changing fast. We know that AI and machine learning is changing what it means to work. And we don't know what those future careers will entail. We don't know. We don't know how to train people. We can certainly train through traditional STEM. We can train through things we already understand, but how do we create creativity and mindfulness to children so they can have autonomous lives moving forward? Next slide. So what we did is we broke out the strategy for Movida, the School of Lifelong Learning, into 5 key categories. And you'll see right up the upper right, first off is sustainable systems. That's what we're talking about. We think about resilience and adaptability, abundance of materials, food. We think of regeneration, carbon neutrality, things like that. On top of that, we think about synesthetic learning and neurodiversity, so everyone can learn in the way they learn best. A hackable school, because to change it, we need to break it first and rebuild it. A borderless education, let's get to know our neighbors and how they think and their concerns. And mental health and happiness. All this together will create what we call human autonomy and allow kids to make good decisions moving forward. So while this is a huge project, let's focus on sustainable systems moving forward to give you a little sense of how it plays into our thinking about removing waste from our world. Next slide. So we thought about architecture as a whole. You know, architecture is oftentimes filled with, uh, energy systems that are, using fuels and are not necessarily good for the environment. So what if we have architecture that breathes with the seasons and the temperature throughout the day? It lets light in to warm the room and then closes the shutters automatically to cool it off when it gets hot. What if we talk about alternative energies, not just solar, but geothermal energy? What about biofuels? How can we change this energy paradigm for the school? And then finally, materials. We can think about things. As we move away from waste, we have to think about things as recycling, and then upcycling, taking what we consider waste materials and turning them into food for the planet or food for other systems. Next slide. So this is why we introduced a company to the school program called Precious Plastic. And Precious Plastic creates these really cool, very affordable products that actually re-inject recycled plastics through extrusion, through plate plastics. And we introduce these in the workshop. The kids actually start to experience what happens when we throw a piece of plastic away. Can we reform it and reuse it again? Next slide, please. So we designed a system where kids are starting to build their own environment. They're starting to construct their own tables at their own height. Because we talk about neurodiversity, what works best for that individual? Let's let the kids build their future world starting in a classroom, one classroom at a time. Next slide. And so, this project is big. It's still going on, but we've built it virtually because our clients are in Singapore. We built it virtually, and we invite them into our virtual environment to all interact with the school and have good conversations moving forward about how we can create a better future for ourselves and future generations. Next slide. So with that, I want to give you 3 takeaways today, and I want you to remember these. The first one, storytelling is an essential tool to behavior change. Without having that really strong story that aligned with Bob Marley's love for people and planet, without telling the story of designing for disassembly, I think when things got tough or the economy tanked, we may not have that beautiful product that is designed to eliminate waste. So storytelling is essential tool for behavior change. Second one, it's not always about the product. Packaging for the win. As we saw, we can remove a ton of carbon footprint by removing that packaging easily, the plastic in the packaging easily. And then finally, education is a key to a sustainable future. This one, we all know it, but we need to practice it too. Next slide. Thank you so much. My name is Martis Bagley. My company's name is Nonfiction. You can check us out at www.nonfiction.design. And I'm looking forward to a fantastic rest of the conference. And with that, I will pass it off to Rachel.
Yes, thank you, Marlis. Can everyone hear me okay? Maybe give a thumbs up. Yes.
Sound good.
Thank you. Yes, so to give you a short introduction, my name is Rachel Greer, and I'm a circular economy and sustainability transitions advisor and researcher. Currently, I'm an independent consultant, but the research which I'm going to describe to you, I conducted in my current place of residence, the Netherlands, at the Dutch Research Institute for Transitions, or DRIFT. And today I'll be describing a tool that I created called the Circular Decision-Making Tree, as Stephanie already gave a nice little teaser of, and there should be an operational model to help businesses and other organizations in their zero waste or circular ambitions. Next. Yes, thank you. But first, to set the context, I think we all know because we're all here, but there's too much waste in the world right now, and most of this is attributable to the fact that we are still in a linear economy of a take-make-waste style of consumption and production. Within that context, the Netherlands has actually created the ambition to become fully circular by 2050. So there's big movements going on here. Next slide, please. Just to make sure we're all on the same page, I think the pictures say it more quickly than I'll be able to, but I think it's good to clarify my definition of circular economy to make sure it matches yours. But the main aims are to slow resource loops, close resource loops, and narrow resource loops. So basically designing for longer life, things after production, and using fewer resources in general. But what this all comes down to, from my perspective, are two key principles, which is one, the least virgin material extraction from the earth, and two, the highest value preservation of the materials already in circulation in the economy. However, despite this ambition and understanding of circular economy in the Netherlands, and I can also say probably worldwide, there's a lack of meaningful progress in this transition. So we have where we are and where we want to be, but there hasn't been meaningful progress. As I said, there's some policies and innovations going on, but nothing that's concretely showing that we're making way on this transition. And I hypothesized from my research that a lot of this is because decision makers lack operational support in making more transformative decisions. So researchers are really busy with all of these topics on circular economy and advancing it, but often there's this lack of translation between research and practice, right? So next slide, please. That's why I thought, well, I can take it upon myself to develop a circular decision-making heuristic that can help guide decision makers through circular decisions or zero waste decisions in a more informed way. That's why I created, as I called it, the Circular Decision-Making Tree, or CDMT. My background's actually in industrial ecology, which has a lot to do with environmental assessment techniques and these type of evaluations, modelings, and waste hierarchies. So I thought it would make sense if I could combine this quantitative background I have with the qualitative research I was doing and combine it into something useful for practice. Next slide, please. So the CDMT I designed to be useful for pretty much anyone, let's say, who's making circular decisions, but that could be at any point in the process. So if we're thinking about policymakers, for example, that are trying to decide what policy proposal might have the most circular impact, let's say, or innovation teams at organizations trying to improve their corporate strategy, funders, entrepreneurs, or even consumers like us who are just deciding if they want to support circular economy or zero waste economy. How can they do that best? Next, please. So this is quite a lot to look at. You don't have to even read a single word on this, but I just wanted to have to offer you an overview of what the circular decision-making tree looks like before I break it down later for you. But so that you see there's like 3 distinct steps here. But before I do that, I'll go into a practical example to help you understand like the first column. Next slide, please. So I think we also heard from Martis, but plastic packaging and plastic in general is still very largely linear. The main thing that you can see from this, I would say, is like on the very left side in the middle. Out of all of the plastic that's in our stock, we're only at 2% closed loop recycling of that plastic. So 98% of it is having some material energy losses along the way if it's being recycled, for example, reused, or that's even the best case scenario, it might also be dumped. This is from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Next slide, please. So I thought this could be a tangible example, like industry, to illustrate how the first, can't see white on pale blue. Well, it's okay, I'll just explain it to you. Yes, so plastic rescue is one initiative going on in the Netherlands. These stats are from the year 2019. It's the most recent one because of COVID. But what we have here are 18,000 people almost. It's a nationwide event, fishing plastic out of the canals. I think most people know the Netherlands is full of canals, and of course, plastic waste makes its way into there. So there's this nationwide event on one day where everyone pitches in and fishes plastic out of the canals, and then that can be, for example, 3D printed into one of these things for precious plastics, for example, which is a really nice initiative. However, this is an end-of-life solution because the plastic has already been created and trashed. So we're kind of behind the 8 ball, let's say, informally. And I thought, well, couldn't it be so much better if we could use that manpower of 18,000 people to create a more, let's say, circular innovation or innovation with more circular potential? Because this is great, but if nothing else changes, then we're still going to need 18,000 people every single year fishing out plastics from the canals. Next slide, please. So one incrementally better solution, this also reflects the zero waste hierarchy, is material substitution. So mostly this means replacing a current material flow, in this case plastics, with a different material flow that would be a more sustainable alternative. So there are many sustainable alternatives to this, but we could use the example of bioplastics as an incrementally, improved solution to the plastic waste. Next slide, please. But even better than that would be if we could reach dematerialization. So that means to reduce or eliminate the amount of material required for a product or process. In this simple example of plastics, I think we all know using a drinking fountain could be, yeah, you're dematerializing the plastic that's used, meaning it's not used at all. So this can be applied, I think, with almost all materials, but plastic, I think, is the most accessible for understanding. So next slide, please. So, I think it's out of, oh, there we go, yes. So this first column is what you saw before. I tried to make it readable, but if it's not, I'll explain it anyway. And then for anyone who's interested, my contact info is at the end of my presentation, and I can send you a PDF, which is quite clear. But the first column, which I'm describing to you, is basically the operational column. So this is the more hands-on, material-focused part of the circular decision-making tree. So when we're looking at this, this basically takes you through the steps I just showed you, but then from most circular to least circular option. So the CDMT in general is a sort of yes, no decision tree that if you follow these and answer the questions, even if you don't have an extensive background in environmental assessment techniques or circular economy, you should be able to independently navigate circular decisions. So first we look at if a waste stream is being created, can it be materialized? If yes, then we go to the next step. If a partial quantity can be reduced, we do that and go to the next step. And if not, then we take a look at material substitution. Is that possible? If it's unclear, it recommends you, for example, to a life cycle assessment, which can help you understand trade-offs or benefits, positives and negatives of making a switch. And if the answer is no, then we take a look at if the material or energy loop can be closed by using the flow as a resource in this current form without processing. Next slide, please. And then if that's possible, we do it. If it's not possible, then we take a look at if the material or energy loop can be closed by using the flow as a resource in its current form with little or no additional processing. If the answer is yes, move on. If the answer is no, then it continues like this. So it helps you step by step. Next slide, please. This one I'll go over quite briefly, but the second column is the strategic column. So once you've decided what would be the innovation or policy with the most circular potential, then we take a look at, can it be scaled up or diffused in its current form? Would this work in another context? Would it work financially to scale up? Or are there human resources, financial resources, time resources that eliminate this possibility? And this also leads you through a series of yes/no questions to see what the highest diffusion potential might be for this. So not only having a local innovation that doesn't have far-reaching impact, but how can we scale this up? Next slide, please. And next slide again. Thank you. And the final column is the reflexive column. So here we identify key process indicators, KPIs, and essentially after however much time you want, maybe a year, let's say, then we take our expected outcome in terms of the circular impact that this innovation or policy will have and reassess this. And this can also work for all other material flows. You can continue using this tool in a loop basically until you've addressed everything you want to. Next slide, please. I'll go quite quickly here, but in my research, I conducted workshops in the Netherlands, Brazil, South Africa, and the United Kingdom to test whether the internal logics and design of the tool were applicable in all of these distinct geopolitical contexts. Next slide. Next slide. That's us doing it. It was even translated to Portuguese, so that's a cool fun fact. It's international now. And now what's the current and future of the CDMT? Well, I was able to publish this in a paper this summer in the peer-reviewed Journal of Circular Economy and Sustainability. So it is an open access tool. I've published it to make it free for everyone. And the point of it is that it should also be usable and intuitive for everyone. However, I would like to also help people, for example, if they would like some teaching of how to use the tool a bit more in depth, or if there's some uncertainties. That's why I was actually contacted by the sustainability director of Erasmus University Rotterdam, and they want to use the CDMT on a university scale, and they've asked if I can come in and give a presentation to people in charge of procurement, so that way they can actually change the university's strategy and make it become more circular based on the CDMT. So I think that's really cool that it's so valuable also in practice. And I would love to also test this in the US, as that's where I'm from, of course. Or I don't know if that's of course, but anyway, that isn't where we've tested it before, but I think it could also be extremely useful for helping any business or organization progress or accelerate towards their zero waste ambitions. So contact me, please, the next slide. If you want to know more, or if you'd just be interested in a PDF, or I can send you the publication link, which I had on the previous slide, or yeah, we can discuss working together. So my email's there on the bottom, greer.circularity@gmail.com, and my LinkedIn is there as well. So thank you for your attention. And now I pass it on to Ryan McMullen.
Thank you, Rachel, and congrats on getting published. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see so many familiar faces and names in the list. It's good to be back among my zero waste people. So what I'm going to share with you today is the work I've done with the Mattress Recycling Council and our efforts to really take a full value chain approach to making zero waste improvements, and kind of what it took and the methods we used to connect all those links in the chain. Next. This is me. Contact info is in the bottom right, but Stephanie already introduced me. Next. So the Mattress Recycling Council is a nonprofit that was formed by the mattress industry and specifically formed to operate recycling programs in states that have mattress recycling laws, which is currently, California, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, but Oregon is coming soon. They passed the law and it's beginning implementation. You may have seen it as Bye Bye Mattress if you're in one of those 3 states, which is kind of the consumer-facing awareness program. Next. So I think we all know that in order to actually achieve circularity and zero waste implementation, it requires coordination across really all of the parts of the value chain. But then that leads to the question of who's going to do the coordinating, like who's going to sit on top of it. You have some government programs like EPA Partnership for the Environment, which I was familiar with from my days in the automotive industry, to try to get manufacturers and suppliers to the table. But that's just part of the value chain. Well, fortunately, California's mattress recycling law really encouraged upstream mattress management. So not just waiting for the end of the consumer's use, but to really think upstream. And then the Mattress Recycling Council is able to bring the industry specific expertise about mattresses, the contacts with the manufacturers, contacts with the suppliers to provide that coordinating role. And this was particularly exciting for me because, like, coming from automotive, you have 5,000 components going into a car, 4 tiers of supply chain, and it's impossible to get your arms around the whole thing. But within the mattress industry, here's an opportunity to really get your arms around the entire value chain and get some circularity done. So I found that just really exciting. And we're just starting out, but we have been able to touch all of the parts of the value chain. Next. So, yep. This is the
Hey,
chart.
Ryan, let's pause for a minute. Rose, why don't you stop sharing and I will share the PowerPoint because this version got a little small.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. Sorry about that, Ryan. Are you seeing that okay?
Yes.
All right, there we go. We tried this earlier.
Okay, do not adjust your television set. So yes, this is one of the things that we had to ask ourselves is like, okay, so we're the Mattress Recycling Council, we're a nonprofit, we sit outside of all these different companies who are competing with each other and supplying each other and doing different parts of that industry. So what is our role? What's our unique opportunity here to touch on these 5 phases of a product's life? And one of the key things we saw, and if you could hit the first next, is to move information from, so we know that materials are moving downstream, and that's kind of classic. And then one more click, MRC's role is to move information from recycling and from the next life of the materials upstream to the point where it can start to affect design and manufacture. So what we did was to try to create a real framework, a repeatable framework for cross value chain discussions to get all the people or the right people at the table, identify very specific actionable challenges that were identified by recyclers, by the manufacturers of the next product from recycled materials and say, how can we solve these? Specifically, what we're not going to do is pick winners and losers and say, this company is good, this company is bad. We're not going to prescribe, this is the one true way, this is the best method. And we're also not going to go inside a company and solve their particular challenges. We're not creating regulations and we're not designing mattresses, but what we can do is frame a discussion and bring information. So that was how we thought about our role. And you can see in each of these steps, there are some specific things we've done. I'm going to go into detail on each of these. Next. So starting at recycling, next. This is where the program started and the state recycling law started, and there's several parts to supporting recycling. And I don't need to tell you all that it's a multi-step process, but the first chunk that we think about is education, consumer education, collection, and transport programs. So I mentioned the Bye Bye Mattress program that you can see the YouTube video on the right there. There are drop-off locations, there's collection events, there's commercial volume programs for like universities and hospitals that have a lot of mattresses to recycle all at once. And then finally, coordinating the transportation and logistics. The second part is actually supporting all of the independent recycling companies that break down mattresses and get them into the next commodity market. Right now, we have about an 80% collection rate. So 80% of the mattresses that are sold are getting recovered. And then within a mattress, 75% of the materials, a little north of 75, but over 75% of the materials are getting recycled into new products. And since these state programs have launched, we've recycled 10 million mattresses. So really having an impact there, and much to the interest of the communities, also preventing dumping and mattresses on the side of the road. But in order to make all that better, we also had to think about research and how to conduct research to improve collection efficiency, transportation efficiency, recyclers' processes, help them disassemble things, get cleaner products, and do it in less time so that it's more profitable for them and they can do it more. But then also to identify new markets for materials so recyclers have additional markets to sell into. Next. Thank you. So after recycling, well, that led us to ask, well, where is this material going? When recyclers disassemble it, sell it into the commodity markets, what is getting made from that? And what do they wish the recyclers knew? Next. And that's really recycling market development and actually reaching out to the next product manufacturer, such as carpet pad manufacturers who are taking the foam from recycled mattresses and turning it into carpet pad, and asking them, like, what challenges are you seeing when you receive a load from a mattress recycler? What's good, what's bad, what do you wish they knew? And to really provide that role of connecting those players and to bring the information upstream. The other part of recycling market development is to say, well, what else could this be used for? And so there's some novel research in partnership with universities to try to say, what else could we turn these mattress components into, particularly the ones that don't currently have a recycling outlet. And so some examples there of turning it into battery anode material or low carbon cement for concrete generation, et cetera. So that's the next life of the material, but then we knew we needed to go upstream. Next. So the first step is to think, what new products are being sold now? Next. And based on our research, the average lifespan of a mattress is about 11 years. So what we did is we assembled an expert panel of suppliers who are selling to manufacturers and introducing novel, innovative materials and saying, so for the mattresses that are being sold today, are there any materials in it that are going to be a recycling challenge 11 years from now? And to be that forward intelligence so that we know if we need to start developing new recycling techniques, new material identification techniques, et cetera. Next. And then moving further upstream, and engaging manufacturing, we started actually a certification program and training program for mattress manufacturers. Next. And the thing about mattress manufacturing is, while there are some large, sophisticated national mattress manufacturers, there's also a zillion smaller companies that, you know, are ranging from 6 employees to 100 that are more family owned, operated, local. They sell within 200 miles of where they create. It's a very localized, small industry. So what we did is we created this training and support program to help these companies start sustainability programs to reduce energy, water, and waste, and to focus on reductions that are going to both reduce environmental impact and save them money so that they can do it more, see the benefit, and then offer a certification where we can provide a third-party audit of their process and say, do they have a systematic continuous improvement program for improving the handling of their byproducts, reducing waste, reducing water. Next. Finally, like Martis was saying, you got to get back to design. So our last step is to try to figure out, how do we bring information to the design stage of a mattress. Next. So we formed this industry work group on circular design and brought together suppliers of mattress materials, such as adhesive suppliers, foam suppliers, the designers of the mattresses, and the manufacturers. And based on some earlier discussions, we realized we needed all 3 of them at the same table at the same time to really start to have productive circularity conversations. In addition, we brought the challenges from the recyclers and the next life markets to say, okay, here's how we can try to make circularity part of the design to make disassembly easier at the end of the consumer's use, but then also make sure that doesn't compromise the quality of the mattress and give it a long, durable use, because you're not helping anything if the mattress only lasts 4 years because you made it too easy to take apart. So it's really a balancing act. And the neat thing is, because essentially we're bringing competitors together, that we needed to find a framework for getting something done without having them share proprietary information. And what we did is we identified some very, very specific circular design opportunities. And we said, okay, mattress recyclers are telling us that it's a problem to separate polyurethane foam from latex foam. Here's a specific actionable challenge. Now let's get everybody to the table to discuss the challenge, and then they can go away from our group and compete to provide the best solution to have a more circular mattress. And so that framework kind of kept us in our role as the nonprofit, didn't violate any sort of proprietary information or non-competitive information, but still got the information from the recyclers and the next product life into the discussion. Next. So the neat thing about this, and I think where this is really starting to gain momentum, is that as we added each piece of this, in our role as MRC, as the coordinator, we were able to learn more about that stage of the value chain. And that helped us learn and helped us bring more pieces together and have better conversations, more sophisticated conversations with those other pieces of the chain. We were able to, because we're an industry group, not just a general recycler, we were able to have those contacts and industry knowledge to reach out to people and get them to the table, ask some candid questions, and really kind of get some internal work done. And some of the key lessons learned, I think these are applicable to any industry. One, at least in our case, the product designers were hungry for recycling information. They wanted to design a better mattress. They just didn't have access to the information. So just bringing them the challenges that the recyclers and the disassemblers were facing was huge. And they were looking for it. We didn't have to sell it. They already wanted it. The second big lesson learned is that the suppliers want to compete. The suppliers of materials to the mattress manufacturers want to compete on offering solutions for hard to recycle issues. They want to be able to go and say, choose me as your supplier because I'm going to help you with your hard to recycle issues. And then the last piece is that that internal communication collaboration within the MRC and having the different internal people who are working on different pieces of the value chain talk to each other and work together really maximizes that spread of learning, so that the work we're doing on recycling can help the work we're doing on manufacturing. The work we're doing with Next Life can help design, et cetera. So like that internal discussion was crucial for us really getting our arms around the entire value chain. Next. And then hot off the presses is what we just finished, and it's looking at recycling and the post-consumer phase of things and saying, okay, so we're driving trucks, we're burning diesel, we have an environmental impact. Is it a net benefit? And so we did a life cycle analysis, and like Rachel was saying, there's a whole process of doing an LCA, and we wanted to compare all of the impacts that we were creating from collection, transportation, processing. One, see what opportunities there are to reduce them, but then compare it to creating virgin materials for the products for Next Life. And what are we displacing by providing recycled materials instead of virgin materials? The good news is, and the kind of the sigh of relief moment, is that the LCA was very clear that there are significant reductions in carbon, greenhouse gases, energy, water, and air pollution from those activities. So yes, we are burning diesel to drive trucks, but it's far better than creating virgin materials for the next products. So the full report's available online. It's freely shareable. It's in great detail, and hopefully it can provide a nice model and provide detail so that when the designers are trying to do their LCAs, they can have something industry specific for the post-consumer phase and not just have to use generic LCA libraries. Next. So that's it for me. I'm going to turn it back over to Stephanie, and you can tell us how you want to manage the last couple of minutes.
Great. Thank you, Martis, Rachel, and Ryan. It is so exciting that, excuse me, we are having this discussion of redesign. And I think, where we're at right now is people get the recycling, they even get source separation, but everybody is moving towards these upper R's. And we need to get these discussions going. And that is the big impact is going to happen. And so I'm just going to close before our next speaker comes on, our keynote, and I would just welcome the opportunity. We'll start with Martis, and then Rachel, and then Ryan with any closing comments, and especially your requests from this community. What do we need to do to fully support the work that you're doing, and what are the one or two simple actions that they can take to make this happen? So Martis, we'll start with you.
Stephanie, I think the obvious is let's all go to conferences like this to broaden our knowledge and grow our community so we can help each other. Another thing might be that in sort of the way Paul Hawken looks at it in Project Drawdown, if you don't know it, check it out, projectdrawdown.org, I believe. It's not a single solution. It's a multitude of solutions to change the path we're on to a better path. So educate and make positive change. Thank you.
Great. Rachel?
Yes, thanks for the introduction, and thanks to both of you two for your presentations. I thought they were really nice and complemented each other very well with mine in the mix. I had the same thought as Martis, actually, just connecting with each other, especially because I'm here in the Netherlands, for example. I'm guessing no one heard of this research before, but it's out there, and I'm guessing you have some solutions or ideas or something that I've never heard of. So there's so much knowledge, it's just a matter of putting it together. And I think by doing that, we can really amplify our power to increase zero waste or circularity progress. So yeah, you also have my email, my LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect. Maybe we can work together. Otherwise, yeah, just keep spreading the word. It's really great.
Awesome, and totally agree, Rachel. And Ryan, I'll let you bring it home.
Great. So I think the theme that really ran through all three of our discussions is the importance of taking technical knowledge that we all have in the zero waste movement, in the material handling industry, in the design industry, and bringing it to non-experts. And I think what we found with our work, and I think what Martis is doing with his material wall, and Rachel is doing with her flow chart, is to say, like, we know you want to make a difference, designer, and we also know that this isn't your core expertise. So here's how we can translate all this stuff into plain English, pick up this material and feel it, follow your line along the flow chart, and like we have to get out of our industry when we're bringing this information to them, speak in plain English, help them understand without becoming an expert. So I think those sorts of techniques and making it real and tangible are going to be crucial for actually changing minds outside of the people who have already changed their mind.
Terrific, and completely agree. We have to uplift everybody and reach out to all those different communities. And you know, public education or education in general is key, as Rachel has showcased, is getting into our schools and into the trade schools and into, you know, high schools. You know, students are looking for those career opportunities. And our industry is a little nebulous as far as, you know, what's the career path. As you've seen from these three brilliant people, they all come from different backgrounds. So really engaging and reaching out, and utilize Zero Waste USA and True. You know, True works globally around the world, and we would welcome the opportunity to get you connected with any of our communities, to host webinars, to create this network. And of course, we have the Zero Waste International Alliance, who's been working for over 30 years and connecting people globally. So we are recording this entire conference. People are asking about the slides and everything. We'll send out a follow-up on that. If you had questions that you put in the chat, we will be looking through those and making sure the speakers will all be getting those. So a huge thank you, not only to our speakers for their incredible presentations, but the work that they are doing and the work that they will continue to do. So Martis, Rachel, and Ryan, thank you so much for your time and your generosity in sharing your expertise.